Hey Mama, welcome to Mom Day. My name is Ella. I am in my third trimester and you're joining me for a labor prep flow. We're going to be working to open up all three levels of the pelvis as well as releasing any tension throughout the pelvic floor for an easier and more comfortable labor. For equipment, we're going to be using a yoga block. If you don't have a yoga block, then just find a stack of books or anything around your house that's kind of this shape. I recommend putting on some comfy clothes, turning down the lights, doing your best to clear your distractions, and when you're ready, let's jump into it. We're going to be starting this flow in an all fours position. So we're going to have our wrists underneath our shoulders, our knees underneath our hips, and we're just going to work on some pelvic tilt. So you're going to inhale, drop your belly down, lift your tailbone up towards the ceiling, and then we're going to reverse that exhale to tuck the tailbone under, working that posterior pelvic tilt, and then drop forward with the pelvis anterior pelvic tilt. And then you're just going to flow through those two movements just with your own breath. You can think about your pelvis as a bowl carrying water. So you're going to spill the water out, anterior tilt, lifting the tailbone. And then you're going to scoop the water up with your pelvic bowl, posterior pelvic tilt, tucking the tailbone under. And then from this position, we're going to open the knees out nice and wide. Our feet are going to touch, and then we're going to tuck the tailbone under that posterior tilt, and then we're going to rock the hips back. And then we're going to pull forward, coming into that anterior tilt, and then tuck, and then rock back. So pull forward, coming into our cow, and then coming into our cat pose and rocking back. And this is going to help to open up the pelvic inlet and help baby to drop down and engage into your pelvis when they're ready. And then we're going to come back into our all fours position. So bringing our knees in, we're going to bring those knees in nice and narrow. And from this position, we're going to turn our toes out wider than our knees, coming into hip internal rotation. And then same thing, we're going to rock our weight back towards our heels and pull forward, except this time we're maintaining an upward tilt of that tailbone. So lifting the tailbone up towards the ceiling rather than tucking under, creating space in the bottom of the pelvis, the pelvic outlet. This is where baby's going to exit the pelvis in your pushing phase, stretching through the posterior pelvic floor muscles. And again, just really focusing on that deep breathing. So big inhales here, long exhales, breathing into the space between the two sit bones, creating that length through the pelvic floor. Lifting the tailbone back and out of the way, opening up that pelvic outlet. Nice job, Mama. Okay, we're going to take our yoga block now, and I'm going to place that underneath one of my knees, coming into an offset hip shifted position. So I'm going to shift my weight towards the knee that's elevated. Should already feel a nice stretch through that back pocket. And then I'm going to sit my weight back slightly. Again, feeling that nice stretch, and then pulling forward. And then we're just going to stay here for this minute on this side. And as you rock your weight forward and back, keeping over towards this elevated side, you should feel that nice stretch through the back side of the pelvic floor on this elevated side. Nice job. Okay, back to our all fours position, and we're just going to switch the side, so placing the block underneath the other knee now. And then remember, we're shifting our weight over towards that side and then shifting our weight back and forward. Noticing if one side feels any different to the other side, and just really sending our breath to any areas that feel restricted or tight. Nice, last breath here on this side. And then we're gonna take the yoga block out and we're gonna lift up into a tall kneeling position. I'm gonna bring my right foot forward, thinking about tucking the pelvis under, feeling that stretch at the front of the pelvis on the back leg. And then I'm just gonna rock my pelvis forward and then backwards. If you need to place something underneath your knee for a bit more comfort here, then you can do. And again, inhaling as you pull forward, finding that lengthening, and then exhale to rock back. If you have a yoga block and you want to use that for a little bit of support here. Really sinking in, letting your body be heavy. Feeling that nice stretch at the front of the pelvis. Nice job. And then from here, we're going to come up to this tall kneeling position. And again, tucking the tailbone under, sending the hips forward, and then we're going to reach our opposite arm up and over, coming into a side body stretch, really breathing into that lateral rib cage, and you should feel that stretch through the hip flexors on that back leg. This is going to help to support baby's positioning as they're coming down into the pelvis, releasing the hip flexors, which might be restricting space for baby to get into that most optimal position. Hip flexors are often tight because we do a little bit more sitting these days, and so just opening up and releasing the hip flexors as we prepare for birth can be really beneficial. Again, keeping that tucked tailbone, but shifting forward slightly to increase that stretch on that side. Nice job. Last breath here and release. And then we're going to take that front leg and we're going to walk it over towards the other side of our body, and we're going to come into a pigeon pose, dropping the knee down towards the floor, and you should feel a really nice stretch through the glute on that front leg. An option to stay upright here. You can come down to the forearms. You can use blankets and pillows here to support your hips and support your body. Just any way that you can really relax in this position. Allowing your body to be heavy here. Sinking into the floor with every inhale. And long exhales, releasing tension. Nice job. Now I'm going to fall back onto that glute, and I'm going to place my hands behind me, and we're just going to come into some 90-90 hip switches. So dropping our knee in towards the midline, again finding that internal rotation here, and then switching over to the other side. last one here. And then we're going to come into our hip flexor stretch on the other side. So I'm going to have my left leg forward this time, and then again thinking about really tucking that tailbone under, feeling that amazing stretch through the front of the pelvis. And then when you're ready, push the hips forward slightly, and then we can bring that arm up and over, and again really breathing into that lateral rib cage here, feeling that stretch through the hip flexor. And then keeping that tailbone tucked and rocking forward and backwards on this side. And again, if you like to use something for a little bit more support here, final breaths on this side. And then when you're ready, we're going to heel toe that foot to the outer edge of the mat and dropping that knee down towards the floor, coming into our pigeon stretch on this other side. Again, noticing if one side has a little bit more restriction than the other, and just breathing into those spaces and letting your body be heavy. Take this as an opportunity to do a scan of your body. Notice, are you frowning your eyebrows or clenching your jaw or squeezing your glutes? Are you holding tension, and can you soften a little bit more? It's a great tool that you can take into your labor as well. Scanning the body, noticing where you're gripping or tightening, and softening with every inhale. Sending energy down rather than up. And sinking a little deeper into all of these sensations. Nice job, mama. Okay, when you're ready, pushing yourself up, we're gonna come back into our all fours position, and then we're gonna open up our foot out to the side, coming into an adductor stretch here. So our toe is gonna be in line with our knee, and then same thing, we're gonna rock our weight forward and then back towards our heels. And you should feel that nice stretch through the inner thigh on that extended leg. Our adductors have deep connections to our pelvic floor, so releasing those inner thighs can be really helpful in also releasing pelvic floor tension. If you want to, you can take your arm, you can thread it under, coming into some thoracic mobility here, because remember, it's not just about the spine, the pelvis, it's also about the spine and the whole body. Nice job. And then back through center, we're just going to switch over to the other side. So extending that other leg out, rocking our weight forward and back here. Really enjoying that inner thigh stretch. And then again, same thing. If you want to, you can add in those thoracic rotations. And then our final pose for this labor prep flow is going to be a deep squat. And I like to do a supported deep squat just to help me relax and sink into this a little bit more. So taking something underneath your bum here that you can sit on. Knees are going to be out really nice and wide, feet turned out wide. And I want you to take this final minute to really focus on those big inhales, expanding and filling the rib cage. As you fill the rib cage, that air is going to gently press down on the pelvic floor, creating that length, and then passive exhale, just let everything go. I like to do a 4-second inhale and an 8-second exhale when I'm preparing for labor. I'm just really trying to soften. You can visualize meeting your baby for the first time. You can visualize your birth. You can repeat your birth affirmations. And that's your final breath. Thank you, Mama, for joining me for this labor prep flow. I am so honored to be on this journey with you as we prepare for labor and birth together. And I'll see you in our next session together. Bye, Mama.